Hello, everyone, and welcome on into the BettingPros podcast. For those of you who are wondering right now, hey, who the heck is this new guy? I'm Thomas Viola. I am thrilled to be a part of the team here at BettingPros. A little bit about me. I am a New Jersey native who has been lucky enough to make his way out to Las Vegas and the wide world of sports betting that has erupted from that. I'm a long-suffering Jets fan. I'm an equally suffering American lover of soccer. And most importantly of all, I'm here because I want to help us all win some money together. And the best way to do that, especially when you are fully admitted not a sharp bettor like myself, is to talk to some sharp bettors. And today we have one of the sharpest. That is none other than my friend Jason Weingarten, a.k.a. Spreadopedia. Jason, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
It is a pleasure to have you. I am really excited to talk with you because baseball season, it is in full swing now. And one of the things that you're seeing all across the gambling Twitter, no run first innings. Everyone and their mother seems to be betting on these NRFIs right now. But I've noticed that you particularly have been saying, hey, wait a second, guys, this isn't a good bet. And this is a trap that a lot of bettors are falling into. What is it about no run first innings that makes them attractive to gamblers, and why is it that is actually a flawed logic?
Well, yeah, I guess I shouldn't be surprised that we're seeing so much attention on this kind of stuff, but it always does surprise me because I don't spend a lot of time on Instagram or on a lot of these social media focused gambling sort of things, and I'll see it all of a sudden. I'll be like, wow, like, you know, this guy has 17,000 followers. This guy has 40,000 followers. Like, and he's just spewing constant nonsense. So I'm just kind of, I'm in my own little world when it comes to gambling. And all of a sudden I start seeing all these people talking about no score first innings. And these are bets I used to make when I was in college, which talking 15 years ago now, almost a long time ago, when I was completely clueless, had no clue what I was doing, and playing on a 5-dimes account, from the beach in Newport, I would bet no score first innings and I would lose. I would lose all the time, and I would have no clue why I was losing. And it took years. It really took years to figure out what I was doing wrong and that I was being an idiot.
Exactly.
But yeah, basically these no score first inning bets are very attractive because you're done after 6 outs, and people see, 2 good pitchers and they say, oh, well, these guys can get 6 outs very quickly. I can bet this and be done in 15 minutes, but it doesn't work like that. The first inning, the first and the 9th innings are the highest scoring innings in baseball to begin with, but you're getting the top of both of the lineups, and you're getting pitchers that aren't necessarily settled in. People tend to have these sort of preconceived assumptions about how baseball works and how pitching works, and that pitchers just come out and could locate the strike zone and, put their curveball where they want it on the first pitch of the game. It doesn't work like that. Some guys need a couple pitches. Some guys need 20 pitches to kind of feel their groove and, get the ball moving the way they like it. And again, you're getting the top of both teams' lineups, their best 3 hitters. And if you're not batting your best 3 hitters in the top of the lineup, you're doing it wrong. And roster construction, lineup construction. So I really think that people are just being taught the wrong things. And I mean, literally, it's like the blind leading the blind. You're listening to someone who's clueless telling you to do something negative EV that you have no clue, what to do in the first place. And you're laying a price. You're almost always laying 120, 130, 140. I mean, I've seen people, laying minus 170s and losing it and betting it again, and the problem I have, just to sort of clarify, I'm not telling you don't bet whatever you want. Hey, it's your life, it's your money. You want to be stupid. I'm not here to tell you, what to have fun on. It's your betting experience is your betting experience. But the reason I bring this up and I talk about it on Twitter, mostly is because when you have a platform and you work for a large company, you either work for a media company or you work for a book, and you're putting out content on behalf of them, and you're teaching people bad habits. You're teaching them incorrect way of doing things. It's one thing to harm yourself. I don't have a problem if you're going to lose your own money, but when you start losing other people's money and making a game of it and telling them, that this is fun and this is a good way to sweat baseball. I'm definitely slightly judging these people the same way I judge people that bet the field on a craps table, or it's just it's stupid, bad gambling, and you shouldn't be teaching other people to be stupid. You want to do it yourself, but encouraging other people is where I draw the line.
I completely feel the same way. As someone who isn't a media company and is supposed to be giving people bets and trying to make people money, I don't care if I lose every last dime that I have gambling. I mean, I do care. That would be very suboptimal, but I take it way more personally because I am giving other people advice. There are people who are coming to this platform that are looking for good bets, that are looking for sound advice so that they can go out and try and make money. It would be predatory not to be trying to give them the best advice I can. And you break down no run first innings, and I believe you look at it and the number is actually something like there's a run 53% of the time in the first inning.
I think it's closer to 51, 49 to 51. It depends what the situation is. But yeah, in general, you're going to score a run in the first inning more often than not. And it's a price thing. A lot of it's a price thing. So if you were to tell me that I was getting, plus 150 or plus 125 even on every no score, like it's a different conversation. But
exactly.
A lot of these people who are giving out these bets are not price sensitive at all. They have no idea that it might be a good bet at minus 120 and be a bad bet at minus 130 or minus 135 or whatever number they're giving it out at. And that's the problem, is you're either clueless or you're doing this on purpose. You're doing this knowing that you're wrong. I mean, obviously one is worse than the other, but both are bad. And I pointed this out the first time I talked about it too, but it's not just the content creators that this is an issue. This means that everybody in the entire chain, the editors, the people on the tech side, not a single person is willing to say, hey man, I think some of this information we're giving out is, incorrect. And I mean, it's not a single person failure. It's a failure of, multiple people, and nobody's willing to point out that, you can give out bad gambling advice.
I mean, it's much more of an industry-wide issue, especially on this side, because people are trying to give out picks. If you're a novice bettor who's just going, okay, I'm getting started, I'm trying to figure out where to go, who to follow, because I don't really have my own opinions yet. I'm just getting into this. There's no system for going, oh wait, this guy knows what he's talking about versus this guy who doesn't, because you're a novice. You don't know the answers to that. Everybody just seems like they're giving out stuff, and you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to believe this guy, and you're picking someone at random. And that's how bettors can fall into another huge trap, which are touts. And we've seen that so many times. I mean, we all know the stories, and one of the most famous ones that there is. It blows your mind because you go, how on earth are people falling for this? It's a scam, but they just don't know.
Well, I think a lot of it, people want to offload the risk of winning to somebody else. Same thing when you invest in a hedge fund or you invest with an investment manager. It's no longer your responsibility whether you win or lose. It's the person that you're paying, and you've basically you just don't have that responsibility anymore. It's a great psychological thing for a lot of people. And all they're looking for is to win. They don't want to learn. There's a difference between wanting to learn to be a better gambler and buying picks and plugging the picks into your accounts. And, oh, my guy wins, my guy loses, but you have no clue what you're doing. And a lot of those people, and I think one of the hardest things about, selling picks or even having a social media following and giving out picks for free, if you like something, even a prop, I'll give you actually a real example. Earlier this week, I was like, I like Alex Cobb to have over strikeouts at, on the prop builder at every alternate number on the over. And he ended up getting hurt and getting pulled with 4 strikeouts. So they all ended up losing. But you could bet from 5. I was like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 or something. And 10 was 30-1, and he had pitched a 10 strikeout game in his first game of the season. So I just tweeted out with a screenshot, like, look, like 30-1. I have an $8 limit on this, so I just gonna tweet it out to tell people, what a good bet this is if they can bet it. $100 at 30-1 is a nice return on a guy getting 10 strikeouts. So I tweeted it out, and a couple minutes later, without me even betting on it, it had been bet down to 15-1, which again, it probably didn't take a ton of money to do that. But when you give out good bets, the line moves. And when you're getting paid to give out bets and the line moves, your customers are getting a worse line, and it's not fair to them to do that, number one. Number two, even if you tell people, this is no longer a bet past, minus 120 or minus one, whatever, just make it up a number. People are still going to bet it. Like, yeah. and it does not matter what you tell them. People are still going to say, oh, I'm only getting 5 cents worth. I'm only getting 10 cents worth. I still want the action. And there's nothing you can do about that. They don't understand that over time they're going to end up losing money when you're winning money because of the price differences. And then the third thing is, and then this is really going to the Sprague tout flow chart. But if you're not moving the market yourself, then why should anybody else want to buy your picks? If the market doesn't respect your picks, then what's the point? So there's a lot of issues with touts that, it could be a 3-hour podcast just talking about this particular subject. But the main issue that I want to point out with touts, I think, is to at least educate the audience that if somebody's charging $50 a month for the information or $100 a month, they are probably not a winning bettor. And I don't mean this to be mean to any people that are charging low prices, but if you don't value your work more than the $100 a month, why? What sort of economics in this gambling business would make sense to sell this information for $100? I want to sell my bets for tens of thousands of dollars if somebody wants day-to-day access to me and discuss, to talk to me all the time. It's worth real money. So if you're not valuing, if the tout himself isn't valuing his information, and obviously they're going to say, well, I want to get it out to more people and this and that. Okay, but then it goes back to the flow chart. If you're getting it out to more people at less money, the market's either not respecting your opinion or you're killing the number before it's going out. So, there are very, very few situations where I think paying for information makes sense. And truthfully, at one point or another, everybody's going to end up paying for some picks. I myself am guilty of that. It was 15 years ago. I was in college. I had no clue what I was doing, but you're gonna buy a pick, you're gonna buy a package or whatever, and you'll learn from the experience. But my advice is that if you're buying something for $50 or $100, like, you might win a couple games. It might be worth the action, just from getting action standpoint. But just keep in mind that the person you're buying from doesn't value their information enough to bet it enough to move the market, or the market doesn't respect them, and that they don't respect it enough to charge, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for it. So, you get what you pay for. And that's my tout rant.
And the other factor there is, if you are paying for this information, then you also, in order to turn a profit, because you're already down $100 or $50 or whatever you're paying for that price, you're down that money to start, which means you need to hit at a higher percentage just to break even anyway. So you're just making it even harder for yourself.
Absolutely. And there's a tout calculator that shows you what, if you're paying this much, how much you have to win at what percent to break even. And like I said, if the person selling the picks could make money, they would already have, they would have people backing them if they're undercapitalized. If you're successful in anything in gambling, whether it's NFL or NFL props or baseball props, all the way down to, USL soccer and minor league UFC and minor league baseball and whatever obscure market you're good at, if you can win and win, sustainably and long term, people will find you. And if you don't have money, there are plenty of people out there who will gladly throw money at you if you're a winner. Touting does not make sense in very many cases. There are obviously always exceptions, and there are, I know several people who do it fairly successfully and as fairly as possible. And obviously getting into the tout world is a personal decision, and some people do it because they're not as aggressive with risk as other people might be. Some people like the having the customers and the fans, and some people do it because it's a good way to book people. Like, you charge $50 or $100 for tout information, you get a whole bunch of gamblers signed up, and then you could book them on a, like you don't think stuff like that happens. It happens all the time. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways, a lot of different ways to make money in the gambling world. And I think that's what draws a lot of the personalities to it, is you have the flexibility to make money in so many different ways. But I think touting is not one of the best. I think there are way better avenues for making money in this business.
Now, another point that you brought up was the number moving on people and them not realizing that the price they're getting a bet at is a bad price. One of the biggest traps that bettors fall into, that old saying, you're not paying juice if you're winning. That's the most erroneous saying in sports betting, I feel like. Line shopping is one of the most important things you can do. I try to never, and granted, for some bettors, like if you're betting $10-20 a game, and nope, no problem with that. I'm not trying to unit shame anybody here. But if that's what you're betting, then okay, maybe 5 cents of juice doesn't shake out to too much for you. But as a practice anyway, it is good to just be going, okay, I want to bet on this game. Let me see what the line is at this.
$10 or $20 and you're not price sensitive. What you're doing is you're creating a bad habit that's going to be harder to break when you decide to up your unit to $50 or $100 or whatever you get to. And eventually it'll add up to losing money. And one of the things I've said a lot recently is that being successful in gambling, a lot of times, I mean, obviously it has to do with working hard and, betting good numbers and knowing what you're doing, etc. But a lot of gambling is discipline and, unlearning bad habits, I think, is the hardest thing that novice and new gamblers have to deal with. That they're, if you learn the wrong way or a bad way of doing things, it's going to take a lot of work to break that habit, just like breaking any bad habit will.
I definitely personally fell into this habit just a little bit when I got started out, because I said, okay, I have money loaded up into one account, so that's the account I'm going to bet on. And I get that for new bettors, maybe you don't want to have accounts everywhere. It's a matter of convenience there, but at least being aware and getting into that practice is so crucial. I haven't even upped my unit play that much over the course of my betting career, but I still, as a habit, you have to know, let me go line shopping. Let me go and see what these lines are elsewhere. And you don't even need to have you don't even need to have an account with every book to go do that. As a matter of fact, and here comes the plug, you can do that using the BettingPros app. If you go online, download the app right now. If you're looking for free picks, advice, bettingpros.com, we have you covered with tips from over 150 experts to make it easy for you to cash out. Download the app to get sports betting alerts, and this is the big part. You'll get notified of favorable bets based on line movements, consensus picks from some accurate experts around the industry, and vetted systems in play. BettingPros monitors all of the major sports books, most accurate experts, and top systems to identify the best betting opportunities. Download today in the Apple or Google Play stores. And the important thing there is BettingPros has a feature where you can just go and compare lines from across a bunch of different books, both in Vegas and throughout the country. And that is just so convenient. That is one of those awesome tools that you can go and use. And even if you're not going to use our tool, I hope you use our tool, but even if you're not going to, go and check stuff like that out, because it is a convenient way to see that you're getting the best line somewhere. And that's so important. Jason, the next thing that I wanted to ask you, what are some of the other mistakes that bettors typically make when they're just starting out that maybe we haven't covered here so far?
Well, there's plenty of things to look for, especially with baseball when you're getting content. And one of the things I've talked about before, it's just there's so much content out there. Like there's just bound to be bad content by definition of how much there is. And it sucks. I get it. Like there's so many hours to fill and so much stuff to do that sometimes some incorrect info is going to get through. And a lot of times it's not necessarily somebody trying to be bad. They just don't know any better, and no one's ever corrected them and told them, hey, that's not the way to do things. So like one thing I see a lot of is an analyst or a host on a show will say, I don't want to lay minus 250 with the Dodgers today, but I'm comfortable laying the Dodgers minus 1.5 on the run line. That's somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. They think they're getting value, laying 1.5 at a lower number. It's not how baseball works. Like, the amount of times I've laid a huge favorite and won by 1 run, and versus the amount of times I've won a run line. And I don't bet, I don't necessarily bet the run line when I bet the money line. I actually bet very few run lines, probably one of the smallest, markets I do actually. But I think that's a huge thing when you see somebody saying bet the run line because it's cheaper. That's probably somebody you don't want to take advice from because they don't have any clue what they're doing. Then there's the batter versus pitcher people. And I think a lot of this has to do with prop betting. And a lot of the legal books have, an emphasis on offering as many markets as they can. So, unheard of if you go through a menu for a lot of these sites, a DraftKings, a FanDuel, BetMGM. Mostly I'm talking about non-Nevada books. But if you go through some of these legal apps during a game, like you could bet on every pitch, you could bet on every player to hit a home run. The depth of the offerings at these legal books are so much deeper than anything we were dealing with in the past couple of years, in the old gambling world. So with these deep markets, you have a lot of people coming over from fantasy or DFS or that have a background and something else, not necessarily sports betting, but sports, some sports adjacent stuff, and they're very into these prop markets. A lot of people just specialize in talking about props, football props, baseball props, whatever, and they win a lot. And the thing is if you really win a lot on props, a lot of these books are going to limit you pretty quickly if you're not giving them action on NFL sides and totals. And even if you are, you might still get limited because they just don't want the prop action from known sharps. But you get these people who not only bet props, but a lot of touts think they need to put a lot of analysis behind their picks and that people want a paragraph justification behind everything. And that's something I've never been good at because, I make a bet and someone's like, why do you like this bet? I say, because I like the number, because the number was higher than what I thought it should be. I can't elaborate a paragraph or 2 paragraphs on that answer. I could just tell you because the number was not what I thought it was, or what I think it should be. That's the answer a lot of the time.
And when you talk about the number isn't what I thought it was, it's not so much that there's a system there. It's that this is years of experience and just years of doing this where you are at the point where you can just look at a board and identify a number and go, I just know that that's not right.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, sometimes, your own opinion, you're always, when you're booking or betting, your own opinion always comes into play, and the ability to hold, to take on risk or, bet more. You can always say, well, like I think that's going to win and the numbers off. But mostly, I'm mostly numbers based, and you have to be able to quantify your edge and know, well, this is 4%, this is 3%, this is 0.5%, whatever. It's a lot easier to know what you're dealing with as opposed to just blindly firing and saying, oh, I have an edge. Like it's better to be able to quantify your edge. But yeah, there are situations like prop markets where I can just kind of glance at them, and years of experience can help you get something that might take somebody else slightly more time. Just click, I'm done. I've been known to do that on occasion, but you can't get sloppy. If you get sloppy and lazy, and start taking slightly worse numbers, your performance will decay over time, and there are no margins for errors when it comes to gambling. Really, it's very, very thin margins all around. But what I was saying about the batter versus pitcher stuff is you get people that come over from fantasy or from DFS, and they're like, oh, like I'm going to use batter versus pitcher stats to determine this guy should be a home run prop bet today. I just shake my head at stuff like that. Like it's just clueless people, kind of drawing, conclusions from noise, and it you can make money. Like it's fun, but you're throwing darts a lot of the time, especially the batter versus pitcher stuff is a huge red flag.
Now, why is it such a red flag? What is it about batter versus pitcher specifically?
It's almost completely insignificant what somebody did in 6 at bats or 10 at bats. When you're getting into higher, like, well, this guy, maybe like Freddie Freeman versus, I'm trying to think, somebody, Jacob deGrom, like they've played each other, tens of times. Like it doesn't matter. The sample size is so small relative. It just, you're drawing conclusions from stuff that you really should not be drawing those conclusions from. And like it's just it's a bad way of doing things, and it's a bad foundation to start thinking like that.
That makes sense. You're looking at a sample size that's maybe on the high end 50 or so data points, and that is nowhere near enough of a sample size to be actually extrapolating something like this.
Yeah, you really shouldn't. Like, I think it's crazy.
All right, guys, real quick, I want to talk to you about Sleeper. It's the fastest growing fantasy platform today with millions of players. You probably already have a fantasy league on there. But now you can win on Sleeper by playing their new over-under game. It's super simple. First, in any sport, choose 2 or more players that you like and pick the total. For example, number of points in a basketball game or hits in baseball. Then choose the amount of money you want to enter into the contest. You pick correctly, you can win anywhere from 2 times to over 20 times the money you put in. The main reason I'm excited about Over-Under on Sleeper is that it's the only app where I can join my buddies' contests and play together. It's got a built-in group chat where I can see and copy my friends' picks with the tap of a button, and I can do some trash talking too. So stop what you're doing and download Sleeper now to play their new Over-Under game. Have fun with your friends and make some money, and make sure to use promo code BettingPros, all one word, and Sleeper will match your deposit up to $100. Again, download Sleeper and use the promo code BettingPros, all one word, when you deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Now let's get back to the show. You talk about investing in baseball cards. Do you use that knowledge of the baseball card market to impact your betting picks or vice versa? Do those two roads intersect at all?
The gambling and the baseball cards do have some intersection. Mostly the reason I invest in baseball cards is as a derivative to futures markets. Because a lot of times, you might have a guy who's a short favorite in a rookie of the year market, but his card is cheap, or relatively cheap. And you might have a guy like Julio Rodriguez and Spencer Torkelson and Bobby Witt. They're all real high. They're the top 3 front runners for the AL Rookie of the Year. Their cards are prohibitively expensive. So I sold a Julio Rodriguez card for about $3,000 before the season, and I used that money to invest in Julio Rodriguez's Rookie of the Year future at like 16-1, because I was basically assuming that that card didn't have 16 times the value in it if he's as good as I thought he could be. And if he does win the Rookie of the Year, I could just buy that card back for, a stupid amount of money if I really wanted it still. But it's not going to go up 16 times in value, which is what I would get off the future. So sometimes you want to own the card, and sometimes you want to sell the card and use that money to make a bet. But I basically use the baseball cards as a way to play around in the futures market with exposure to guys for, different. It's basically the reasons being that the futures market might have a different price, than the value of the card, or vice versa.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, you can actually balance these markets against each other, and the baseball card betting market is almost a little bit like gambling. You're playing essentially a version of the stock market. So why wouldn't you take that information and transfer it over to the betting market? That makes perfect sense to me.
The baseball card market, though, has a lot more sort of barriers than betting. Like betting, you find a number, you make a bet, you win or lose. Baseball cards, got to list it on eBay. eBay is going to take 12%. You want to get it graded. That's, more money, time. There's a huge backlog with the PSA grading right now. So, the cost, a lot of times the profit margin in the baseball card is not nearly what you think it's going to be, especially when you get done with all the fees and everyone else taking their cuts in the process. So, I mean, you really got to hit it. You either got to really hit it out of the park. You're not looking to buy like a $500 card and sell it for $600, $700. You're hoping to buy a $500 card and sell it for, $2,000, $3,000. If you're not thinking like that, you're probably not going to get great returns. You got to do the cards because you like them. But for those with incredible amounts of disposable income, the baseball cards and basketball card markets are incredibly lucrative.
That makes sense to me. You got to be looking for a higher ROI in the baseball card market than you do in the betting market, just because, like you said, of the time, energy, effort, and extraneous costs that go into that.
Yeah.
Now I want to ask you one more question here. I've got a weird one for you. In the stock market, like we just talked about, global issues can affect domestic stock prices. But no one really thinks about how these same issues might create efficiencies in the betting markets. Is there any time that you found this to be the case in the past where global events have actually helped create an edge for gamblers that no one's really seen? Do you see anything like that in the world today? Like, does even Russia, Ukraine manage to have some kind of impact in gambling?
There was a lot of stuff during COVID that kind of had unusual, there's no precedent for the sort of how do you handicap this. You just kind of had to make some assumptions. But I remember like there was some Nicaraguan baseball that I would watch, and the guys were playing with masks on the field. And I was just like, well, the team that's playing with the masks is going to play worse. I know very little about Nicaraguan baseball, more than most, but still very little overall. But like, I know that the shortstop wearing a mask is, gonna it's like having like a restrictor plate on a carburetor. Like, it's not fun to go out and play sports in a mask. It's not fun to run around. You just, it's gonna impact your performance, especially if you've never done it before. So, like, I knew to bet against the team wearing the mask. It's stuff like that. Like, or there'd be there. I remember there was a situation. It was like Bolivia and soccer or something. Maybe it was Uruguay. I don't remember what country. It was definitely South America, where like the entire team got COVID the day of the match, and they had to play, the like reserve side, the academy side. And so the market was just, it was just nonstop action on the other team. And like some books pulled it, some books are just like, whatever, bet it. So you get like random situations like that where entire teams are being replaced by academy sides. And I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, so vaccines. Teams would have like mass vaccine days, and they'd all get the vaccine at the same time, and like they'd go out and play like crap the next day. This was an MLB. Like there were pitchers who were missing their next starts, because just the vaccine took a couple days out of them. But like I just kind of look on Twitter and, the Yankees all got their vaccine today. Let's bet against them tomorrow. And those mostly won. They weren't like 100%, but they hit at quite a large clip. There were NHL teams too. I just knew like, look, this NHL team all got their vaccine. Like they're not going to go around and skate tomorrow night. Like I think the NHL ones were close to 100%. So yeah, I mean, if you're willing to kind of extrapolate some news and make some assumptions yourself, there's some good stuff. But Russia, Ukraine, there hasn't been anything just because, I mean, the markets, there's KHL, there's Russian and Ukrainian soccer. I don't know anything about it, but in general, there hasn't been many exploitable geopolitical betting angles with the Russia Ukraine stuff. Anything I can't think of anything. There was a lot of table tennis going on out of those countries during COVID. That was crazy. People were betting a lot on underground table tennis, but I haven't heard much about that lately. Unfortunately, those were some interesting days.
I feel like that market was definitely the definition of filling a need at a time, and maybe wasn't the burgeoning future of sport.
Yeah, there were some crazy times when COVID, when everything was shut down. There was Nicaraguan baseball, Nicaraguan basketball. I think Taiwan had some basketball. It might have even been women's basketball for a while. Belarus was the center of the sports world. And there was table tennis. There was outlaw golf, and people were betting on game simulations. Like they'd plug in a PlayStation, and it was some weird times, man. Like I don't know what to tell you. Those were some dark days.
Trust me, you don't have to tell me twice about that. I fully remember those days myself. I was one of the people that plugged in their PlayStation, went on Twitch, and was just running Madden games. I wasn't taking any action on them, but I was just doing it to do some play-by-play stuff and just occupy my time. I am very thankful that we are done with the bulk of COVID at this point. Jason, thank you so much for joining me today, my friend. It was a pleasure talking to you, a goldmine of information for new bettors and experienced bettors alike, things that maybe you don't realize that you're doing in your betting habits that you can try and break, and better practices that you can be putting into place. It was a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate it. Where can people find you on social media and all the awesome work you're doing?
You can find me on Twitter at Spreadopedia, and then you can find me on VSiN. I'm on Numbers Game with Gil Alexander on Wednesday mornings, usually Wednesday at 8 a.m. I'm usually on a couple other times throughout the week on different shows, and then I have my own podcast, Wide World of Weingarten, which comes out almost daily on VSiN and iHeartRadio and Spotify and YouTube and wherever you can get iHeartRadio podcasts. So I'm usually available one way or the other, in some form of media.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for us here. Once again, thank you so much, Jason. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And guys, best of luck with anything you're betting this weekend. Hope you have a lot of fun, and let's catch those tickets.